It's another Manly Monday, and this Manly Monday, don't be afraid of the title. This is not going to be a scolding. It's not going to be what you think. Why it's important to realize that not all women are your mother. Now, you may have heard this whole thing about the husband, a woman describing them as, an extra kid. This is why you don't want to compare women to your mother. And yes, my hair looks different. I got a haircut today, so they styled it. And I'm like, quick, do a video before it's wrecked. Because, yeah, I know I'm going to wreck it. So, tiny perfect moment. And then it'll be destroyed soon. So, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Okay, here we are. Help support this channel if you like this content. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. And yes, if you want to sign up for a Leanna Care session or get a friend signed up for a Leanna Care session, link in the description box below to the sign-up form. Below. Oh my God. I'm recording this on Friday. It's been a long week. Okay, so this was inspired by some conversations I've had this week where it's been a while since I've had to do the I am not your mother talk with people, but last week was an I am not your mother week. I am not here to be a caregiver. I am not here to pick up after you. It's called peer counseling because it is peer-to-peer. The reason I like peer counseling and not conventional therapy is because there's a power imbalance between a therapist and a so-called client. But too many therapists don't treat their clients as, paying customers, or the way a hairstylist treats their client. It's this, I can say what's wrong with you. If you say the wrong thing, I can drop you. There's this real judgmental thing that I never liked when I was in therapy. I did best with social workers because social workers were more kind of street level of, okay, let's work on this together instead of, I know all the answers, do as I say, right? So when you start, and this is partially putting women up on pedestals thing. This is also men are actively discouraged from sharing vulnerable feelings with everyone but their primary partner. Heteronormative thing, of course. It's most in heterosexual couples, but I'm seeing more and more in gay couples. One partner is the rock, the other one is the all over the place. But you know what I mean, right? Obviously, this is a generalization. This is not everybody. But yeah, if you're looking for all your soothing, all your nurturing from your female partner, it starts to become much more of a maternal relationship instead of a romantic, sexy relationship of two equal adults. And that will ultimately hurt your relationship because she'll get resentful, he'll get emasculated. Or she'll get resentful and she'll get, emasculated. He'll get resentful and he'll get emasculated, right? Like, the person who becomes the child gets more and more childlike because living up to expectations. And this is the thing. People, despite themselves, no matter how much they say they can't stand it, tend to unintentionally try to meet the expectations the people in their lives have of them. This is something that I had to break when I was in trauma therapy. And oh God, it sucked. Because my family didn't traumatize me necessarily, but they were used to traumatize me. They were comfortable with traumatize me. Traumatize me was an annoying burden, but traumatize me did what she was told. Obviously, this is not the person you're dealing with here, right? And that's the whole point, is that I didn't want to be the person who was always just submissively complying. That's not a relationship of equals. And I also didn't want to be a constant caregiver, one of the things I got a lot when I was younger was, I hoped you'd understand, or I thought you'd understand. And in trauma therapy, you deal a lot with assumptions and how you attempt to live up to the assumptions people have of you, and that keeps you in trauma. And that moment where it's like, yeah, you thought I understand, but I don't. And that's a process, and you can't coerce me into understanding. That's when I started getting called a bitch a lot more, but I got stronger. And one by one, the people who called me a bitch for setting boundaries went bye-bye, because I cut them out of my life because they weren't good for me. And that's why the people who know and respect me respect the fact that use that word very sparingly around me. It was funny because I backed up a buddy that was getting kind of piled on last week by he put up this post where he said he didn't say there was anything wrong with the word cisgender. He just said being called a sissy growing up or something equivalent. He hears cis and it hit something in him. He never said there was anything wrong with the word. He just said he didn't like it. And these people piled on him. Do you realize you're saying that people should just get rid of a word because that's useful as a description because you don't like it? And he never actually said that. And so I chimed in. It's like, many people consider the word bitch to be a word useful to describe me, but I still don't like it. And that ended the conversation right there. It just stopped dead. I was pretty proud of that one. It's okay to not like words. It's okay to not like anything, as long as you understand that sometimes you're going to hear it. It's almost the same as non-binary pronouns. Everybody knows that people are going to mess up. All that matters is if you try. So, I've got a lot of friends who throw the B word around a lot. And they say, I'm sorry, I know you don't like that word. It's that little bit of consideration that when it comes out of them, it's the Chris Rock thing. He ain't talking about me, right? So that's the thing. It's all about respect. And if you're coming into a relationship with a woman expecting her to replicate the relationship you have with your mother, positive or negative, you're setting up an environment where not only is she going to feel disrespected, she's not going to respect you in the long run, because you don't respect children. You raise children, right? This is where we get into the whole, there's this constant question in Jewish philosophy of why do the Ten Commandments talk about honoring your mother and your father, but not talk about honoring your children? And rabbinic scholars claim honoring your children is assumed. I disagree with that interpretation. I think that honoring your parents is not obeying your parents, and that's a very important distinction in a book that deals with, well, they were scrolls, but that deals with God and commandments, and you don't honor a commandment, you obey a commandment, right? So the choice of honor is a very specific thing. There is nothing in the vows that I would agree to at my wedding that involved obeying. The traditional bridal vows don't contain the word obey, which I'm good with that. It's sort of, if I remember correctly, it's some kind of variation. I am a man for my beloved, and my beloved is for me. And the man has this whole list of things that he has to promise in traditional Jewish ceremonies. And the woman is just like, yeah, cool. And it's done. And that was a check and balance, as far as some scholars have, it was a very patriarchal time back then. The Torah was written for men. And there was this complementarian thing of women were just supposed to know things. And that's not true. Women were taught. And there's been this ongoing buildup of resentment to the point that, if you read trashy romance novels, it seems to be more and more this fantasy of a woman being a hot mess and a complete brat and like actively awful, and some amazing guy falls for her and loves her and thinks she's sexy anyway. And that is not life, but the need that is pandering to is this idea that women have to be wife and mother and girl boss and all that shit all at the same time. And it's just not possible to be a partner and a nurturer at the same time. And so you have to decide, do you want a partner who you work things out with and you're equals with? Or do you want a subordinate? No, you really don't. As good as it sounds in the long term, no, you don't. Because then everything's your fault. Or do you want a nurturer, meaning a second mother? Again, it won't work out. The only relationships that go the distance are the ones that are equal partnerships. Now, equal does not mean the same. Equal does not mean you split the tasks 50-50. And this is where we get into the idea of man's work and woman's work regarding the home, and the ongoing thing about women still do the lion's share of the housework. Typically, I'm not saying in your situation. And again, this is laid at the feet of men. I don't believe this is men's fault. I believe it's men's mother's fault. Because the mothers of men who don't learn things like laundry and cooking and proper cleaning and other things around the house, they weren't taught. A boy isn't in charge of what he's taught, what he's expected to do in the home. And a lot of moms' internalized misogyny comes in, girls are expected to learn this because I had to learn this from my mother. But boys, oh no, go play, right? Go do things. It's okay. Go spend time with your dad. Instead of learning these life skills. I've talked before about a bit of marital advice my mother gave me that I ignored, was don't barbecue because it's the only kind of cooking he'll do. I happen to like barbecuing. Fire. Awesome. And that doesn't mean what are the fondest memories I have in the whole time I did comic book conventions was barbecuing with Bruce Timm, the Batman the Animated Series guy, at Calgary Comic-Con Banff retreat. And it was intense, like the different grill techniques. And I don't eat meat, but I cook meat really well. And it's because I don't avoid meat by choice. I avoid meat because I physically can't digest it. And so just being around it. You know how some recovering alcoholics, they'll go and sit in bars so they can get the bar culture, but they'll drink like club soda? That's me with meat, right? I want to touch it. I want to like cook it. I know I can't eat it because it'll destroy me because I have intestinal damage from my appendix rupturing and not being caught for 2 weeks. True story. But yeah, it's just like meat. I miss you, so I'm going to be friends with you, even though I can't consume you. So nobody takes away my barbecue. But this idea that you somehow trick men into doing things is treating men more like children than adults. And again, people will fulfill your expectations of them, whether you like it or not. So the few ladies watching these videos, my advice to you is don't make relationships into a battleground. Do things you like. Negotiate on things you don't like. Nobody likes household tasks, but there are some you can stand more than others. I hate doing dishes because I hate that feeling of the shirt getting wet around your stomach. It completely freaks me out. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's a tactile thing. But I happen to really like cooking. But because I don't do the dishes, my husband does. I am aware of not, using 6 bowls when I can only do 1. And that is respecting him. That is not doing an ongoing grudge match of, well, this is your job. I'm going to put you in your place, which if you're looking for someone to be your mother is the dynamic you're going to get of she sets the rules. She's the disciplinarian. She withholds and doles out approval and affection to corral and approve or disapprove of your behavior. That is disastrous for relationships. You don't want that. So how do you avoid accidentally or deliberately seeking out some kind of woman who reminds you of your mother? Or you're trying to completely avoid a woman who's like your mother. Hello, Midna. And in, yes, baby. Accidentally landing right on a woman that has a lot of your mother's traits, even though you tried to run screaming for that because your mother was horrible, but it's familiar, and so you were drawn to it. You have to break things down and try to avoid the assumptions. Try to avoid these big global things of what men are and what women are. Remember that there is more overlap. There is more intra-gender difference than inter-gender difference, which means individual men are more different than other men than men and women are different from each other, and vice versa with women. And that's the thing. Women are not one thing. If you are consuming content that says women want this, women want that, stop. There's a difference between here are the social pressures that women face, be considerate to that, and all women want this. If you've seen my comic agony over reading romance novels, because I lost Man versus Bear to Song, you'll see how different women are. That's what I like about Two Women Talking. Song and I are very different, but she's super smart. And so I want people to see not all women like the same things. Not all women come at things the same way. There are commonalities. And a big commonality is that any woman who doesn't want to control a man isn't okay with the idea of a man who is an additional child. And yeah, that means a lot of women are seeking, intentionally or not, to control their partner. because this is what they were taught to do by their mothers, with things like, don't do this, don't let him do that, don't like. One thing that drives me crazy is treating like spouses as if one spouse can control what the other person does. In a healthy relationship, there is a certain amount of, I don't agree with you doing this, but I support you doing this because we are different people. Now, there's a give and take there, because there are times that your spouse should have veto power in a healthy relationship. You can't violate your spouse's boundaries, your partner's boundaries. And that's why when you can say yes, you should. Because, that's when it's like, all right, I'm good about these things. This, no. And it's not because I just live to say no. It's because I'm uncomfortable with this. And yes, it can be a conversation, but there should never be this dynamic in a relationship where you're forcing or tricking your partner into something they don't want to do. You should never be manipulating or coercing somebody against their best interest. And it's not in someone's best interest to be forced or manipulated into doing something. And, a lot of the men I work with, a lot of the men I see in the comments, even the very strong reaction to Man versus Bear or Star Wars, it's all this fear of being forced or tricked into something that I think is at the core of this. And that goes back to mothers, right? That's why that's why you hear things from men of, women can hurt me in ways I can't even imagine. I have to be on my guard. I have to protect myself from women. And yet, many men, it's the same way of, I push back on, oh, she just wants attention, as an insulter. You're just looking for men to pick you. Well, every heterosexual woman, is looking for some man to pick her. The same way every heterosexual man who isn't asexual or aromantic is looking for a woman to pick him. And even if you are asexual and aromantic, you still want friends. You still want people to pick you. It is in the human brain to want to be picked by someone. That is what we call validation and acceptance on Sanity Land, right? In Sanity Land. I like that, Sanity. But I'm not saying I'm good crazy. And so we send this mixed message of, don't be a pick-me, but at the same time, we want companionship. We want to be wanted. We want to be liked. We want to be loved. That means being picked, right? And it creates such a maelstrom in both men and women that it becomes, that battle of the sexes, instead of, this is one person, this is the other person. Are you compatible? Are your core values a match? And if your core values are a match, you can find common interests that you both like. And then there are other things that you do your thing, the other spouse does the other thing. My husband's not into Dungeons and Dragons. He doesn't play video games except with me. Yeah, I know. We've been together for 25 years. How did that happen, right? But he just got into Doctor Who. I made a mistake the first time. I started him because it was Matt Smith as the Doctor when he tried to watch with me, which was Moffat. Wasn't a good time to start, but he liked the Nishutigawa stuff because I'm like, I don't care, Tenant, 10th and Donna Noble are coming back. I much watch, and he's like, all right, this is okay. I think Donna might have been a big selling point for him. Just saying, Catherine Tate, but he liked that. And he liked the first two Disney Doctor Who's. And so I got him the David Tennant DVDs. And now he's obsessed. Now he's upset. By the time we hit the ood, he was committed. By the time we got to the series 2 finale, the Billy Piper X, he's a convert now. Now I can show him the Matt Smith stuff, and it's like eating mangoes outside of, Florida or further south. It's like you remember what good mango tastes like. So even if it's chalky, horrible crap, you're still remembering the good mango. That's how it works, right? That's respect, right? That's working together. That's collaboration. And yeah, we've worked together our entire relationship. So, we have to work it out, even when we don't like each other sometimes, even when we're pissed off each other, even when we feel betrayed, even when we feel hurt. You have to keep working together, not just to, if there's a business involved, but also just household stuff has to get done. Things have to happen. And respect is what's there, what remains when you don't like someone, when you feel betrayed by someone, when you feel hurt by someone. Even more important than love is respect. Because sometimes you do lose touch with your love for your partner because they've hurt you very badly. That respect remains. It's much easier to connect with respect because your respect for other people is an extension of your respect for yourself. And so it's much easier to connect with respect when you're pissed off at your spouse than, it's a skill to be able to connect to the love you have for someone, even when you're angry, hurt, or betrayed by them. That takes some work. But respect for humans as humans, seeing this person as an adult equal instead of mother the sequel, makes that respect much easier to maintain so you don't turn into a lashing out, emotional maturity regressed trauma that happened to you when you were 6 or 8 years old with your partner. Because when you start doing that, you do damage the relationship. And we all do it from time to time. One of the good things about trauma therapy is it makes you much more aware of that. And personally, I think that if we taught the skills were learned in trauma therapy when we're teens and young adults, we wouldn't need as much trauma therapy, because that bottling up, the taking everything on your shoulders, that perception of being disposable as a male, that you just have to eat shit, that is often rooted in a lack of nurturing as a kid. And we know boys suffer from a lack of nurturing because we try to make them men before their time. Whenever somebody tells an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, you're the man of the house now, look after your mother. No, that child is 8 years old, you fuckwits. Let him be a kid. We don't say to girls, you're the woman of the house now, look after your father. No. But there's so many situations I hear from guys of, yeah, my mom treated me like a proxy spouse. She treated me more like sort of a husband than a kid. And if we said, oh yeah, my father treated me more like a spouse than a kid, we see that as creepy. Unfortunately, after my mother left, that was what I went through. Part of the trauma, that my mother wasn't there to yell at, as you are letting me down, woman, so who got it? Oldest daughter. After 12 years of him trying to mold me into a proxy boy. I had to realize why that was wrong. I had to stop that from infesting my adult relationships, because if you don't, it all comes out on your partner. And then it when it comes out on your partner, it comes out on you too, because you're not your best self. You're not showing up. You're sitting on this nest of anger and resentment and fear and panic that is repressed, and it's festering. And not only do you deserve better, it is absolutely possible to have better. We know how to get beyond this. And that's a big part of the reason that I got into what I got into. I wanted to pass that knowledge along, because I do think that only treating the traumatized in this way, we can do it at scale if we don't wait until someone is exhibiting post-traumatic stress. If we do this respect for other individuals as individuals, we can avoid all of that, because people know how to meet their emotional needs. They're not treated as disposable. So if you like this content, and if you would like to explore some of this stuff, sign up for a Leanna Care session or help support this channel. Your Patreon support is super important, because it means I can take occasional days off. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/LeannaK. Sign up for a Leanna Care session yourself or for a friend in the link in the description box below. Please ask your friends before signing them up. Coffee.com/LeannaK for the donation. Link in the description box below for a Leanna Care session. Thanks for watching Manly Mondays.